Come in, welcome. What's that? No, you haven't missed anything. They're just about to start. Buffalo sports, of course. Everything. Bills, Sabres, Buttes, No, it's not very... Well, they certainly think they're funny. Listen, let me pour you a drink. Have a seat and lend an ear. You'll hear tales of sorrow and despair, endless droughts and infamous tanks, and things Mike doesn't like. Please, join us.
You know, going into this season, I don't think we all expected very much out of this Bills team. I mean, after last season, them sneaking into the playoffs and all that, it was nice that they made it after 18 years. But going into this season, we knew there were issues on this team, and we saw that most of them weren't being addressed. They drafted Josh Allen, started Nathan Peterman at quarterback, and it's not been going as well as some people hope, but it's been going as expected, but it's still hard to watch these games. How many of you would agree that some of these games are just, even as bad as we expected this team to be, that it's just been very difficult to watch?
Yesterday's football game was just not fun to watch. You hope with a team that is developing that at least if they aren't successful, that there are parts of the game where they are fun to watch. You get like the Jack Eichel effect for the Sabres the last couple of years. Like, you might turn in and they might lose 5-2. But for 30 seconds of the second period, Jack Eichel's going to put the puck on a rope and be like, man, I'm really excited for when this team is good again. I don't have those moments with this Bills team at its current iteration. I don't get them from Allen. I don't get them from McCoy because even when he flashes, he won't be at the top of his game, you figure, by the time the Bills are good again. I don't get them from the receiving core. I don't get them from the special teams. I do occasionally get them from the defense. But the
defense isn't looking bad this year.
Defense was okay yesterday, but unfortunately a little bit overshadowed by the other aspects of the football.
What's weird to me is who doesn't want to play catch? Catch is like the greatest game in the world because it's just two people
throw a ball back and forth.
Throwing a ball. I'll catch it. And they'll throw it to you. And then you'll catch it. Probably because I'm a really good thrower. And then you'll throw it back. And that's like the best game in the world. Why doesn't Calvin Benjamin want to play catch?
It interrupted his pregame meal of 13 Paula's donuts and a small cheeseburger.
Oh, you gotta save calories somewhere.
He wanted to
Diet soda.
Conserve energy and get back to the locker room and hit the IVs. If you're worried about conserving energy in your warm up, you should maybe reevaluate your conditioning.
I just gotta say, if that is Calvin Benjamin with a conserved level of energy, then God help us if that man runs a wind sprint, because Jesus fuck, he doesn't have anything to show for it.
I mean, you worried about running 8 3-and-outs throughout the game? Like, you got to conserve energy for that? No.
He had to run a bunch of 5-yard out patterns, which he didn't finish any of, so that he could run the one downfield route that was the first completion of more than 20 yards, quite possibly the entire season, except for that week one that was 5 yards behind Zay Jones that he had to turn around and walk back to. It's been
1 week since you looked in.
Before you guys got here, I went back to the Ravens game just to watch Nathan Peterman's 2 picks from that game.
Just to feel pain again.
Just a sucker for punishment, eh?
I love torment. And I forgot about the world's laziest slant route by Calvin Benjamin in that game. That was picked off.
The one he got out-muscled by Brendan Carr.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was rough.
Paul Hamilton just wants everybody fired. I saw that on GR today.
What, is he just mad that he didn't get to go to Vegas?
No, well, he picked up the Houston trip, Chocolate City, man.
Oh, that's right.
People love
right.
Houston. Great city, cows, cowboys.
I just saw Harrington clapping at him saying, hey, GR, you guys didn't send anybody.
Oh, clap back. They still have the Golden Knights jersey on the New York Statue of Liberty.
No. They might now. When I was there in August, they had an Aces jersey.
Oh,
WNBA.
Very nice.
Yeah, it was very nice.
Prog rock. It is, I don't know. Why are we here? Why does anything exist? I'm really questioning everything.
You know why we're here?
Because
we're the 716 Sports Podcast, and that's what we do.
We love
every
the people.
Monday.
We're here for you.
If we can't make it better, we're going to share in it with you.
Yeah. So
that's right.
It was like watching. I got a chance to watch the second and third and half of the fourth quarter, and it was like watching a practice. And it was just it kept going and going, and like it didn't. It kept going, but it wasn't going anywhere. It was just a back and forth, and it was just gross.
It was low energy. That whole game was low energy, no excitement. It was terrible.
Here's a question I feel like might divide the room. Would you rather watch Nathan Peterman throw a 10-yard out route or watch the Houston Texans try to score a touchdown from the red zone?
Oh, God.
Peterman with the 10-yard out route.
Because I don't know how. They have quite arguably the best receiver in the NFL, and they can't figure out how to put the ball in from 10 yards away. With the guy who can catch literally anything thrown within a 5-yard radius of him.
Okay, so the Texans were on Sunday Night Football the week prior, and I watched the game against Dallas. I was doing scouting. No big deal. And that game, I believe, finished 19-16 in overtime.
19-16 overtime win.
And the Texans were inside the Cowboys' red zone 5 or 6 times.
It was a handful of times, yes.
And the only time they went for it was in the wrong scenario. Like Bill O'Brien is not a tactician.
Players love him though.
Players love him.
No one.
He's got a butt chin, so that's cool.
Got that.
But yeah, the inability to perform in the red zone is just maddening because it's not only DeAndre Hopkins. They've got Will Fuller and they've got a pretty good 1-2 combo, I would say, in Lamar Miller and Alfred Blue. Like
serviceable. I mean, Miller's not a world beater these days.
If that fails, you have one of seemingly the most dynamic. He's coming back, but one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in Deshaun Watson.
And you have a slot guy in Kiki Kuti who's really starting to utilize his speed. They have all the tools you would ask for in a team to be successful offensively, and they just can't seem to string anything.
They can't do it. They just can't do it.
It is amazing.
Incredible to me how inept they are in offense.
It doesn't matter if you have all the tools if you can't somehow put them all together.
That is entirely correct.
Yeah, you're right. But why can't they put it all together? Why are all these individual talents unable to get anything? And the answer is probably the offensive line. But
you got a little offensive line, a little coaching, a little bit of play calling.
I think it's a lot of the play calling. But
how many times was Watson sacked yesterday?
It was a bunch.
Sven.
Yeah, that offensive line actually was making the Bills' offensive line look pretty good.
I thought our pass rush looked really good, though. I don't think it was entirely their offensive line is not good. Don't get me wrong, but I mean there was a lot of plays where there was someone on top of him immediately.
Yeah,
and Hughes and Alexander and Williams and Murphy were just swarming him, especially early.
Yeah, and the entire defense as a whole, once again, performing fantastically. We'll pull up the PFF ratings that they had, but I mean they had, while not career days, they just continued once again to pile on the pressure for this team that just I feel the video that you saw of the defense walking back into the locker room was about as dejected as I've seen a bunch of guys. They looked so sad because that was their outstanding an absolute killer performance.
That's the best, arguably the best defensive game of the last 10 years. 20 points allowed.
Unbelievable in what they were able to produce. And it wasn't just one guy having a career day. Oh, no. It was Lorenzo Alexander. It was Jerry Hughes. So, on a scale of 100, where 100 is essentially theoretical, I'm not sure if 100's ever been hit. Lorenzo Alexander scores a 92.7. Jerry Hughes.
And he had, a sack and an interception?
Yep, something like that. Jerry Hughes, 90.2. Trent Murphy, 88.9. Awesome
both of those
to see Trent Murphy do that.
I believe both of them had a sack and a half.
Kyle Williams, 58-year-old Kyle Williams, had an 84.9. And Matt Milano, who is, really
a revelation
up here real quick this year, 81.2. It was an unbelievable performance. Tre'Davious White, who normally is the best defensive player, in my opinion. He actually had one of the worst performances of anybody on that defense.
And still held Hopkins to 5 for 63. Couple holding calls.
Yeah, you have to account for the fact that he had a couple defensive holding calls against him, but
might have been a game that was being officiated a little bit tighter. I feel like he wasn't doing anything against Hopkins that he doesn't normally do.
I think one of them, one of the calls, I think everybody kind of looked at and like, you're really going to call that? It was kind of a ticky-tack call,
Yeah.
but you get those playing football. Sometimes the refs are real strict, sometimes they're loose.
And Hopkins' big catch was not a bad play by White. He just grabbed that ball. It was a tight window. It was a great catch.
That was only where Hopkins was going to get it.
Yeah, called for similar penalties last week. Almost the same exact penalty. Maybe the league's picking up on and watching for with him.
The league's consistent attempt to make sure that no one ever plays defense against a wide receiver.
Pretty much.
The day of the physical cornerback is fading more and more with every rule they introduce. But
Defense is...
yeah. But to think that that's his worst game of the season is a credit to what Trey White has done, keeping a top 3, maybe a number 1 receiver in the NFL to 5 for 63.
But yeah, I mean, these guys were all over all 3 levels, but especially the front 7, which, everybody kind of thought that the defensive backfield was going to be the strength of the team. Well, the front 7 has been great. And we're no longer asking the question, well, what is the real defense? I mean, whatever happened in Baltimore in that first half against the Chargers, it's gone. This is a elite defense, probably a top 5 since, those first 6 quarters, which do count. But even taking those into account, I think there's something like 11th overall in defense. The efficiency, though, they have been arguably the best defense in football over the last 4.5 games. And it's wasted right now because
Just can't get first
the
downs.
offense is so far bad in the other direction. They're so far behind everybody else. Even some of these awful offenses that we've seen, like from Arizona and Tennessee and others, they're better because the Bills' offense just can't get anything
In the words of the great philosopher of our time, Will I Am, the Bills' defense is 2008, but the Bills' offense is 2000 and late.
Very good. Yep.
All right, guys, that was a good show.
Going out on a high note.
Well,
The Peterman came in too, and it looked good. Briefly, he had that touchdown pass
Briefly,
to
yeah.
Jones, and then the first converted 3rd long of the season, and I was like, oh man, this looks bad for
All right,
Josh Allen.
I need an honesty check of the 5 of us in this room. When Peterman threw the touchdown pass to Zay Jones, were you A, excited and thinking, maybe he turned this around, or B, waiting for the inevitable end of the game where he did exactly what he did?
C, not reading anything into it.
Yeah, I had reserved optimism. I actually had a post I was going to share that I waited to share, and I'm happy I waited to share it. But I'm going to go C, reserved optimism.
that was your Nathan Peterman tattoo that you were about to get done yesterday.
Yeah, that's
and
it. Yeah,
decided to
the big number 2 is a Peterman
decline
Dan
just
Carpenter
on your-
mix.
just on your back. Carpenter man.
Peter Dan.
I thought it was okay because I thought, all right, they're going to actually. I didn't think that they were going to allow the Texans to score again. I mean, that was kind of the
Well,
mentality.
the defense
at that point.
didn't allow them to score.
And then everything just went to hell, and that's kind of what the feeling was. Yeah, I mean, Nathan Peterman is not an NFL quarterback, and it sucks that this non-NFL quarterback
And he
keeps
could
getting put
start-
into NFL games.
And he could start Sunday.
I feel it's more likely than not at this point.
If you read between the lines in some of those comments,
I
sounds like-
screenshot a few of these.
there was one in the very beginning of the press conferences, and he was talking about, I know it's a fans thing, but I also have to do
Yeah.
what's best for the football team.
Bill, if you want to go with
And that's
those,
like, I know you're gonna be pissed off, but I'm gonna do it anyways.
How does McDermott possibly go into the locker room and say Peterman's starting on Sunday? Like, how could you literally?
I don't know.
Who else is going to start?
You could start it. You could run a triple option the entire game. It'd be a better idea.
So I think,
Run the veer.
I think it was
It
in
doesn't matter.
2015. Maybe it was 2016. Jeff, you may have a brief memory of this. The Baylor Bears were down to their fourth string quarterback, and they literally just had to run
Read option the
single
entire
win
game.
and single wing and read option the entire game because they just
Sweet.
their best way forward to winning because their first 3 quarterbacks were hurt was to just run the ball and hope that you can eventually make enough plays. And I believe that they ended up losing that game by 3 points or something like that. At this point, and I understand that he threw a touchdown. I get that you can't actually do this, but you have to think outside the box if Nathan Peterman is going to be the starter against the Colts. You have to be creative. You have to kind of throw everything into this one game plan. If the cat's out of the bag and all your trick plays are ran in one game, whatever. you got to do something because we got it before Derek Anderson gets up to speed. You can't have that guy have to be forced into making conventional football decisions because he's incapable of doing it.
It's fine for the season.
If you're that far into it doesn't matter what you do, just throw caution to the wind. Aren't you better just bringing out Anderson and playing Thanksgiving front yard football and just telling guys to get open deep because we can at least throw the ball? Maybe he doesn't know the playbook, but just say, fuck it, let's go and just try to move the ball downfield here.
Well,
get McCoy involved.
He has familiarity with Kelvin Benjamin.
him and
They've been
Benjamin.
teammates.
He does.
He's got
And
He
Carolina.
has familiarity with half the
Table.
locker room at this point because they're all playing in Carolina
connection.
together.
He's going to Star Latule, come on down.
Star at goal line running back, calling it.
No, you talk about the creativity in offense. I feel like the offense seems more vanilla now than it does in preseason. Remember the preseason we're sitting talking about how good the offense looked. Like they're running, it's like 3rd and 2, and they're coming out 5 wide, and like trips right, things like that. You never see before out of the Bills. Like real football,
It's not happening
like real
anymore.
formations. You haven't seen that since like preseason week 3. It's like what happened? They did not trust the quarterbacks, Josh Allen, this much to run their real offense. And that's what I don't get. I didn't think about that just now. You haven't seen none of that stuff since preseason.
I don't think I'd trust the quarterback who's the most experienced quarterback on the roster has 6 games right now, other than Anderson, who was just signed last week. But when your most experienced quarterback has 6 games under their belt and is in their second
0
season,
of which were 4 quarters of football.
Yeah, it's also
Right.
appearances in 6 games.
So I have 3
Allen has
tweets.
now.
3 tweets from the McDermott press conference on Monday. Would you like to dissect Coach McDermott playing peacemaker, Coach McDermott understanding the fans' plight, or Coach McDermott trying to explain why Nathan Peterman's going to be starting on Sunday?
Let's start with Peacemaker. I think
Yeah.
the fans want to be the best discussion. We'll save that one for last.
This is from the Buffalo Bills official Twitter account. Follow them at Buffalo Bills on Twitter. They have a check mark. Pretty neat. Coach McDermott, after doing research and talking to both players, I'm very comfortable with the relationship between Josh Allen and Kelvin Benjamin. End quote. # Go Bills.
what kind of relationship do they have?
They're
obviously
they
not
are
on the
both
field.
Of the
He
human
talked to a
species.
drugged up Josh Allen post MRI and all of the food inside of Kelvin Benjamin's body, and they said, "Now we good."
So I don't remember the reporter. Reporter from Channel 7 said that she clearly heard Mr. Benjamin disagreeing to the idea of running a couple more reps, a couple more practices. Had to go get some IVs. Wanted to have his me time. Get himself in the tent, whatever. Kelvin Benjamin, at the time, seemed like a great deal. 3rd round pick. It was a reward for a team that was unexpectedly, I believe they were 5-2 at that point, bringing finally in a number 1 wide receiver because the situation had gotten so dire. And
that just
in the
felt to shit.
16 or so games that he's been here, yeah, the disappointment is just off the charts with what he's produced or the lack thereof.
So we talked a little bit at times, and Mike mentioned in the open, about how last season the Bills succeeded more than we thought they would and snuck into the playoffs. If they don't succeed last season more than they expect, they probably don't make the Benjamin trade.
I don't think if they're 4-4 or 4-5, whatever their record was, even 4-3, I think the Benjamin trade was done because they were at, I think it was 5-2, and they said, well, let's get, because it was actually, they got him right before the Thursday night game against the Jets because he couldn't play against the Jets because he wasn't up to speed yet. Everybody thought it was a good deal. Most people thought it was a good deal at the time. I certainly thought so. I thought it was a reward for the team to be a number 1, to go get a number 1 wideout that rarely is ever available. And I was wrong. It was a complete fleecing, and I don't know what at this point the positives of having Kelvin Benjamin continue to be trotted out there are.
I mean, at the point that everyone knows he's not a threat anymore. I mean, you can't convince number 1 corners. There was a couple number 1 corners this year who have been sliding over to Zay Jones. The point of having Benjamin is supposedly that you make Jones' life easier, but it hasn't been at all.
Nothing has gone right. There's no better development at this point. The Texans defense, Jonathan Joseph put up a 92.3 rating on PFF. Green Jackson was almost at 80 as well. We're talking about really impressive performances, and a lot of that has to do with the lack of ability that currently exists in these wideouts. They can't beat anybody. They just can't.
Benjamin did have quite a long reception called back due to a formation penalty, if I remember right.
I think it was a legal
Yes.
formation.
There were 2 formation penalties, which is completely unacceptable in professional football. But there was, I think it was at least 40 yards that Benjamin had.
Damn
And
fullbacks.
It was a really good. He got up there and got that ball. I was kind of impressed by that, but obviously looking at the stat sheet, 6 targets, 2 receptions is unacceptable. But yeah, those penalties are just absolutely killer. That DeMarco had the one, and I think Dawkins had the other.
Does it worry you about him allegedly saying, "No, I'm not interested"? For one reason or another, is it something where if the rookie quarterback asks you, don't you just
If any
get out there
quarterback
and
asks
just for
you-
like five routes, just something? Don't you owe it to your quarterback?
I
to
I
kind of
really don't
follow?
care if it's like I don't care if it's like Derek Anderson walking off the bench, like, hey, you want to run deep for a couple?
It just
like, what the
seems-
hell else are you doing? Your job is to get ready for the game.
It seems very counterproductive to decline that. So that's where we sit with our number one wideout. So now let's go to, do we want Coach McDermott understanding the fans' plight, or Coach McDermott talking about the complexity of the offense?
Well, let's go.
Complexity.
Yeah,
Complexity of the offense.
This comes from Chris Brown. He's at Chris Brown Bills, aka State Ran Media for the Bills. McDermott. Anderson is still working with Coach Dable to get up to speed. The newness of offense, players he's working with, are all part of the challenge of getting ready. #Bills. Okay, so
Can we go up
The-
there and have him make it up as he goes along?
the incredibly complex, diversified offense that we've seen on the field.
Yeah, sometimes they throw the check down to the right, but sometimes
Hey.
they throw a check down to the left.
You can't read War and Peace in a couple hours, okay? So sorry about that.
I'd settle for reading like Goodnight Moon at this point.
Yeah. So what we're hearing on that is that it's absolutely impossible that Derek Anderson is going to be able to do it. Now, we have breaking news into the podcast. Our friend Adam Schefter just texted Justin.
Friend of the pod.
You can find him at Adam Schefter, also
He's a second degree friend of the pod.
That is true.
He is. And the report right now is that it is the right elbow. It is not considered major. We will be seeing Josh Allen going to Dr. James Andrews, but it's a similar injury right now to the UCL that was what Marcus Mariota had in week 1. He was actually, I believe, active week 2 or week 3, but didn't play. So it was kind of like a 2 to 3 week injury before Mariota was able to get back out on the field. If that's what it is, then it makes sense to hear that Josh Allen is a week-to-week consideration.
I wonder if it's not considered serious, why are they going for a second opinion to a super specialist?
What's the harm?
My guess is to make sure that it isn't serious,
Yeah.
and that
If you rush him back and he makes it worse, then you're set back for a year.
I had an
More than
injury
they
to
already
the
are.
same, like my elbow 2 years ago, but I actually tore mine completely. But
And you're still here.
yeah.
Playing quarterback just like you used to.
But I'm a 31 bar league hockey player, not a professional quarterback. But I never got mine surgically repaired because it's Tommy John surgery. So like I just rehabbed it, but I can't throw for shit anymore. And when I play fetch with my dogs, I do this weird underhand sidearm thing to throw the ball to my dogs.
So Justin does not play catch, Bill. So don't ask.
That's
I
your
will-
question. It's a sore subject.
I'm a receiver.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, you are.
I'm a catcher, not a pitcher.
How does Dr. James Andrews not have a Twitter account, by the way?
He doesn't need to.
He's the
Everything
GOAT.
he does, his daily schedule is tweeted out by Rodak, Schefter, and Rappaport.
To avoid HIPAA violations.
And also
to avoid HIPAA violations. That's a good point.
WWE as well.
That's true.
So Josh Allen, I think we can rule him out for the Colts game.
I think that
that's
seems
fair.
like a safe
You know
bet.
what? I think as a podcast, we're gonna rule him out.
Let's rule him out.
He's out.
All right. Stamp of approval. So
One more, Bill?
Derek Anderson is watching tape upstairs, but he can't get there in time. Finally, Sean McDermott. This comes from Mike Rodak at Mike Rodak on Twitter. He's the best beat writer that the Bills have at this point. Sorry, Bills Mafia, that he actually tells you the truth. It's a real bummer. But anywho, Sean McDermott fielding questions about why he remains confident in Nathan Peterman. Beginning each question with, and I quote, "I understand where you're coming from on that."
Didn't he say that multiple times?
That's what
Several.
Yeah.
multiple times with Nate Peterman questions. So, for example, if I was in the press conference, I would say, Coach McDermott, pretty clear at this point that Nathan Peterman sucks. Why do you keep throwing him out there?
Bill, I understand where you're coming from.
Thank you. And then that just diffuses me, and what else am I going to say? You know what? You're right.
Our president should try that.
Yeah, you should. Hashtag your president.
Your president.
That's your boy.
Shit, I did say my president. Our
Your boy.
president. Damn it.
Yep. Fuck. Well, busy day for DNA testing. We'll have to get you figured out later. But anywho, yeah. So that's where we're at this point. Is we have to have the, the people tell us, well, look, I understand that he's thrown a bunch of interceptions and cost the team multiple games, and he probably shouldn't even be starting in an NFL game, but
He shouldn't even be rostered.
I understand where you're coming from. That doesn't help. If Nathan Peterman, and again, we record on Monday nights, everything is still we're decompressing from the Texans game. We don't know. How do you go to this fan base and say Nathan Peterman is the starter on Sunday at the Colts? Because, look, we have determined that the only conditions that Nathan Peterman can start a game are at home in 75-degree weather against the Atlanta Falcons, in which he has everybody healthy and there's no injuries on the offensive line, and it's last year's offensive line. So, given that those conditions don't exist, how can you put him out there again?
We're talking about Buffalo Bills, Sean McDermott football here. Those are two things that you could expect the absolute worst. Talk about a coach and GM that traded all their talent and they made the playoffs last year. They think they can do anything and get away with it right now. So I would not be surprised if you see Peterman start. There's going to be a lot of angry people and mob mentality fans.
Mafia.
But you got to remember, they're not at home this week, so they don't really got to deal with it at home. So they'll be at Indianapolis.
He does get to play in a dome.
Right.
Mid-60s, probably inside the dome.
It'll be extremely
No wind.
Extremely Mayo out there.
Brian Dable
Very
was like,
Mayo.
go out there and don't throw any outs to the sideline.
I do I think this is stupid. I do think if you do start him again, it has to be on the road. And like you said, it's in a dome against a not great defense. It's not like the Colts are this lockdown.
I mean, the Jets put up, 30-some points
Yeah.
on them yesterday?
And
So
I mean, they've struggled all year. There have been, who they play the best against was the Texans. It was probably the best defensive performance that they've had this year. So this is totally a team that I could see, doing it. We're pulling up now a GoFundMe.
Oh, it got canceled.
The GoFundMe to cut Nathan Peterman.
So, all
Eat
right,
up that dead cat money.
real quick, you stupid shitheads. Setting up a GoFundMe because you don't like something isn't the way to solve
Well, it's
it.
like
If they
also
get it.
going to change.org and setting up a
Yeah.
a White House backed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
If you really want to make your voice heard to the coaching staff, stop buying the tickets, but you fucking won't. So
Register and vote like the rest of us and try and make change that way.
The billboard worked with Duran.
that wasn't the only
he was
thing.
going on his own.
That was not by itself.
He did that on his own.
That no man is an island.
Yeah.
So that's great.
So I mentioned earlier in our Slack that we have 6 quarterbacks that count against the cap this year.
Yes.
Where would you rank Nathan Peterman on those 6 quarterbacks? For reference, for those of you who do not know, those 6 quarterbacks are Nathan Peterman, Josh Allen, A.J. McCarron, Tyrod Taylor, Cardale Jones, and who am I?
I'm pulling it
Derek
back.
Anderson.
Yeah.
At this point,
So, where would you rank Peterman in those 6 quarterbacks?
I mean,
I swear to God, you have your hand up, and if you have Cardale Jones behind Nathan Peterman, I'm going to come over there and kick you in the face.
it can't be worse. Like
He can't be worse.
He can't be
That's
worse.
not possible.
I know that you're just saying that to troll him, and that's fine because I kind of approve of it. But I don't know how Cardale Jones could be worse at this point.
Hey man, if you want a 6
I think Cardell can throw the ball downfield too. So
He absolutely could.
He's got a laser rocket arm.
If you
and
want
everything,
a
like-
6'5" big
Won a
arm
national
quarterback,
championship.
yeah,
EJ Manuel's a free agent.
Oh yeah,
He's out there.
bring him in.
Well, we got to go to the film room and make sure
Jimbo Fisher getting dudes paid. Getting dudes paid.
See, O'Leary had a touchdown yesterday.
Of course.
The old O'Leary to Osweiler touchdown, which everyone had in their fantasy leagues. It's
Fins up.
I loved earlier, Nick in the Slack, you also mentioned the comparison to the
Jake
great
Locker.
Jake Locker for Josh Allen. And that
Wait.
one, that stung a little bit. I don't
That
think anyone
one-
knew what to say.
That one's
I saw
not that's not that far off.
To be fair, I did see it on Bills Mafia, but it was actually a very nuanced take. Like, it had, these are the 3 reasons why Jake Locker, outside of, not being drafted 7th, Jake Locker was drafted 8th in that year.
But I remember Jake Locker going into that never being an accurate quarterback, but having the look of being
Intangible.
the quarterback.
He had this highest ceiling. And
Right.
Todd McShay was like, he's going to be the number 1 pick out of, but he stayed another year.
Yeah, he actually
where did he
hurt
go?
himself. Washington.
Washington, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
University.
He did
of
hurt
Washington.
himself, yeah, big time. But
So-
yeah, that was really. I read it. I'm like, that's actually a really good.
Yeah,
comparison.
without revealing the entire ranking, I have Nathan Peterman 6 out of 6 in that, and I'm not even. That's not being a douche. That's not being trolly. I would consider playing the other 5 quarterbacks ahead of him if all, if everything is equal in terms of health and all that for them. The fact that we have 6 quarterbacks that are counting against the cap this year is pretty cool.
Do we really have to eat part of that McCarron cap hit to
Yeah.
get them to give us the pick?
Yeah.
$2.8 million on the cap.
So that we could trade away the only experienced quarterback and then find out that was a dumb fucking idea
And
and,
what-
go re-sign another experienced
How do
quarterback.
they still owe Cardale Jones anymore?
They had
It's like
it's
20 grand or something?
No, I think it's like $200,000.
Just based off
it's on the
a
cap, based
roster
off
bonus?
of a roster
Yeah.
bonus.
That has to
That's
become.
unbelievable.
That has to be
the amount
last
of
year
dead
that.
money that this team has is unbelievable. How many mistakes they've had to make and immediately retcon. They couldn't even ride out the level of mistakes that they're making. They've had to immediately can them so that the fan base didn't burn down the fucking stadium.
Right, and then you get to the point where it's like, oh, well, we're going to have $84 million to spend next year. We're like, nobody's going to want to come here next year because you have this back asswards offense that doesn't know how to throw the ball. So why are wide receivers going to want to come here to not catch the ball? And then, oh wow, that was a long jump.
We just
Marquise-
watched-
He is an
Marquise
Olympian.
Goodwin.
Yeah, we just watched
Marquise
Marquise Goodwin, number 1 wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers, just legitimately jump about 13 feet
That
in the end
is
zone at
amazing.
I
Lambeau.
mean, legitimately an Olympic athlete. You guys, I know we talked about it before you and Nick walked in, Bill, but imagine if we had a guy like that who had Olympic level speed so that with our quarterback who can throw the ball 70 yards down the field, there was actually someone on the team who could catch up to it. Just imagine if the Buffalo Bills had that guy. Imagine people going to Bills games wearing his jersey. Imagine what that would be like if we had a guy like that.
I've actually never seen a Marquise Goodwin Bills jersey.
I don't know if I have either, honestly.
I don't think so. No.
I think I've seen a Woods jersey. I've definitely
Definitely seen a
Marquise.
Woods jersey.
Now,
I've seen a Percy Harvin jersey.
Justin,
You own a Percy
I
Harvin
was going to
jersey.
say, is that you?
I'm the one.
you
Yeah, you're the only one who
You
bought one of
indicated
those, right?
in Slack today that you wanted to get a Nathan Peterman jersey. Explain yourself.
Oh, just out of pure.
Troll.
Just
Yeah.
to spite
He
everyone.
wants to wear it 20 years from now to give his friends Vietnam flashbacks.
I admire his accomplishments, and I feel like that jersey is going to be a treasure in 10, 15 years. And it's going to be something everyone laughs about. Like, you work at the Bills game, it's going to be...
Two years ago,
Somebody's going to buy you a beer in 10 years because
Yeah.
you're wearing that jersey.
I would like his accomplishment to be
frame.
leading this team to a first overall draft pick this year.
well, so far so good. He's getting there. 2 years ago, I went onto eBay and attempted to buy a signed and framed Demarcus Russell jersey, and was outbid. I went as high as $3.50. Someone snaked it at $3.75 under the gun.
That's incredible.
Unbelievable.
So I can relate to why you want that Peterman jersey.
Was it
God, I
framed
told-
and everything?
It was it was a piece of art.
Oh man, that sucks. I'm sorry that you lost that.
I totally have something I want to segue into, but we're not done talking about this game yet, are we?
I don't really have much else to say.
Well, I know who
we should-
does have something to say about this game.
Oh, look at this guy.
Good segue.
Our friend Pat Moran from
The Moran Analytics
Moran
podcast.
Analytics podcast with the PAT.
Keep talking.
It's professional
Okay.
journalism right there.
Damn
Nick.
it!
Good segue.
I thought you were right. Because I have
What's up,
something.
guys? Patrick Moran from the Moran Analytics Podcast here.
fucked it
Teaming up with my buddies from the 716 Sports Podcast to bring you the PAT with Pat. Each week during the Bills season, I'm going to jump on this podcast after a Bills game, give you a quick take or two on something that's on my mind. And this week, I'll tell you what, Nate Peterman is going to dominate conversation. I get it. I understand why. Ditto for Josh Allen. But you know what? Forget the offense for a second. The Buffalo Bills special teams is quickly becoming disgraceful. You had 2 Ray McLeod fumbles, one of them in which they lost. Lorenzo Alexander, for as good as he played, he got absolutely trucked over on that block punt in the first half. Special teams directly responsible for 10 of Houston's points. When the Bills needed a touchdown late in the game, Tywan Jones dropped the kickoff, lost all the momentum he had. The Bills had a bad drive start to end the game there. Another penalty on Deion Lacey, I think, for the 3rd straight week. I mean, the guy's only job literally on this roster is to play special teams. This roster just has far too many players on it whose primary purpose is special teams to be as bad as they are. I saw a stat on Twitter where their special teams efficiency score, and I don't know what the formula is, but does it really matter? That score is currently the lowest since it became a stat in 2006. Not just for the Bills, but for the entire NFL. So yeah, lots of talk about the offense today, and I understand that. But get the special teams together quick. Because if you don't, Danny Crossman's got to go. Somebody needs to get held accountable. There's way too many guys on this roster who are here for special teams for that unit to be as bad as it is.
Anyway, Nick, you had something there.
Well, oh man, it felt so good, just like ready to go. But you were talking about your Peterman jersey and how, in 10 years, somebody's going to buy you a beer because you're wearing that at our new stadium in North Tonawanda.
I think that is actually considered Tonawanda.
It is the town of Tonawanda.
Town of Tonawanda, yep.
Yeah.
That is a shitty place to put a stadium.
You want to know the quickest way for me to never go to a Bills game again? Put it in Tonawanda.
It's hard enough coming to a
So
podcast
much better
in
than
Tonawanda.
Orchard Park.
It's 160 acres
Sure.
It's a lot of space.
with access to the 190 and 290.
Yep.
So
Yeah, have fun
little
getting off there.
So who wants to have a little background? I think, Mike, you did the most research on this. So give us some background here for those of you who haven't heard yet.
It's just where it is on River Road that, Emminger's like, I can't understand where he came up with this idea that putting it on the site of Tonawanda Coke was a good idea, just because the limited access points to the stadium. I mean, basically, you're going to have River Road as your only main entrance point. What other roads are around there that you're going to be able to use to access the stadium? Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of infrastructure put in there, and I don't really think that area is well equipped to handle it. It's a terrible idea. It's going to take a long time to even get started on it. It's just a terrible idea to put it there. And it's a bad location.
Yeah, it's just 2 lanes wide, too, as opposed to Abbott Road is like 7 or 8.
I like how all the reasons that you guys just listed, none of them involve the fact that there's a bunch of chemicals and radioactive things buried all
They're
around the
going to
facility.
fix it.
Okay, so I asked for background. Apparently, that was just not going to be a thing. So background. There's a company, for those of you who aren't in Western New York or paying attention to anything, there's a company called Tonawanda Coke. I have no idea what the fuck they do.
They make Coke.
I don't know,
Coca-Cola
whatever.
products.
They do something. They don't make Coca-Cola products.
They pollute the air. That is their product. Air
So
pollution.
they were sued, and they essentially have to close. They are on a massive, what you said, 160 acres?
160.
160.
That's a very large plot of land that they're on.
Think of an
And
acre,
they're-
and then think of
multiply it.
159 more next to it. That's
It's a
incredible.
lot.
or around it.
So they're being...
It's 60 acres bigger than Winnie the Pooh's area.
God damn.
Jeff. No. So they're essentially being forced to close, and they are in the midst of actually processing their closing this week. This should be done by Friday. And so there was an interview earlier today from town councilman or something from Tonawanda,
Yes.
Joseph Emminger, and somebody asked him a question. He said, I don't know what the question was personally, so I didn't do that.
I believe it was about what they would do to repurpose the area.
So, and repurposing of land in a situation like this is very important, especially here in Western New York, where we don't have a lot of economic development in those sorts of brownfield areas, which it essentially, because of all the pollution and everything, it'll be similar to in my mind, I imagine it'll be similar to what Bethlehem Steel down in Lackawanna will be, or is, and has been for 40 years. It'll be brownfield where they need to do some. They can't really, have residential or commercial there right now, anyways. And eventually, they want to do something with the space.
They were talking about industrial.
Industrial will be very difficult to just
like
because,
light industrial.
Yeah. Because we don't really have a lot of the needs for light industrial, especially in that area. It's close to water, but not necessarily. Anyways, that's economic development stuff that nobody wants to hear about. Eminger said something about having, potentially creating the space for a new stadium. And that is where we stand now. I don't know. It's interesting we say that like it's awful and it's terrible and it doesn't have all this infrastructure, but you have Abbott Road, which is what, a 6-lane road?
6 lanes, 3 on each side.
And you have Southwestern, which is how many?
I think 6 as well. And then it actually goes down to 4 pretty quickly, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Very quickly. And Big Tree Road?
4, maybe 6.
3.
Is it 3?
4, and it's 4, and then it goes to 3 pretty quickly. And then down to 2, actually, once you get closer to 219. I think, if I remember right. But, I don't know. It's not a...
My biggest thing is how much of this is being privately financed. That, to me, at this point, is the biggest factor with any sort of stadium.
Right, and that was also something that kind of leaked out over the weekend, was that the Pagulas are starting to kind of take, some of the money that they're getting from the county and putting it into a side pot. So that eventually it's quote unquote a new stadium like piggy bank, where they're taking $500,000 and throwing it to the side and not necessarily using it for upgrades, but using it for things like research and scouting of different areas, because we need a new stadium. I mean, that's
no doubt.
That's definitely a thing.
It's a bridge we'll have to cross at some point, whether it's next year, but inevitability.
It's going to be, the next 10 years, so Justin get his free beer for his Nathan Peterman jersey in 10 years. I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's a lose-lose. It's not a lose-lose, but it's going to be a very difficult situation no matter where it is, because we don't have access to everything. I mean, how many of us have been to other NFL stadiums?
I've actually never been to another NFL
I've been to
before.
Cincinnati's.
Yes, you have.
What?
Not for an NFL game.
Oh, I did go to the rodeo in Houston. You're right.
Well, didn't you go to
and I've been to WrestleMania
Yeah.
too. Okay.
I'd
All
say
right.
I've been to 2, but they both
Horrible lie on my part. Yes, I have been to 2 other stadiums.
Come on, Bill. I
Actually,
set you up
no,
for that.
3. Never mind. You know what? I'm just gonna sit over here. They're fine. I went to Detroit in 2007. I went to New Orleans in 3 separate times in the past 6 years,
And we've all been to the Sky Dome, so
I've been to Texas. We've been to the former home of the Buffalo Bills.
So there you go.
Obviously, those stadiums are. The Superdome was built the same year, or like within a year or 2 of New Era Field being built.
I think it's around then, yeah.
It's been updated multiple times since then.
Yeah, there was a bunch of damages and everything they had to repair after the hurricane. So
right.
Parts of that building are a lot newer.
Well, yes, absolutely. Detroit, Ford Field was only 6 or 7 years old at that point when I went to it. It was nice. It felt very sterile, but it was nice. That felt the most. It didn't feel like it was the home of the Lions. It felt like going back, when it was HSBC Arena and there was fuchsia paint everywhere. Like it just felt like, well, there's no like identity to this place. It's just a building where the sports team plays. And then the Texans Stadium, and that again was also in 2007, so it was about 5 or 6 years old at that point. And it was for a rodeo.
Reliant?
It was I believe it was Reliant at that
Energy?
point. It was not the NERG at that point, and we went up there, and it was fine. Again, felt a little bit sterile, but it was also, the part of it was the Astrodome. You couldn't go into it, but you could kind of see it, and it was amazing to see how much bigger it was in the Astrodome. And I remember going as a kid to a bunch of Astros games because my grandparents lived down there. That's why I was even down there, and to see it next to each other was kind of it was impressive to see the difference in the size. But Yeah, I mean, I know at this point it's gonna something has to happen. There's a lot of things that I wrote about over the summer that I like to see them at least attempt to try and build relationships with. And as far as the design goes, I think you steal from a lot of things. I just don't want this team to build a new stadium and put it somewhere like the 49ers did with Santa Clara, where it's out in the middle of nowhere. Nobody wants to go.
Parked on a golf course when I went there. Parked on a golf course, walked across a bridge, just in the middle of the sun. It just felt like
what are we doing here? Right. And it's the same thing like in Houston. There's nothing around the stadium. It's off a highway, and there's a lot of parking and everything, but they don't have. If you're going to leave New Airfield, then presumably, to me, you need to go somewhere where there's going to be at least an opportunity to have economic development, whether it be controlled by the Pagulas themselves in a similar situation to what the Atlanta Braves have in Cobb County with their stadium, or you go downtown and there's already sort of the existing thing and then things can build up around it. But we know that that's kind of a myth that people sell you on. The whole idea of building a stadium downtown as economic development will come when it rarely does, and if it does, it's not necessarily impacted by the actual stadium itself.
I think it's got to be downtown. I generally like the thought of it being a town I want to cook, but I don't think it would ever work. It's a highly industrial area with like La Forge across the street, it's like a cement company, and everything around is just super it'd be super awkward, just super industry, and then like football stadium.
Yeah, like
and you can't develop shit around it.
I mean, is it like driving through Orchard Park, your car dealership, weird corner restaurant? Oh, the Bill Stadium.
Yeah, like
I mean, if they would have to do some infrastructure changes, but I don't think that in concept putting it in Tonawanda is so much weirder than where it is now. Right, they would definitely have to improve access to the stadium.
Because we all think of Orchard Park since the day we were all born. Orchard Park was where the Bills played. Like that's just kind of what. Yeah. I mean, otherwise Orchard Park is just like the rich suburb in the South Towns.
Right.
Otherwise,
Pittsburgh Stadium. I've been there. Small stadium, 60,000, I think. Open, right in the middle of downtown.
Yep.
Very welcoming.
That would be the kind of thing
you gotta work for a place to park, but it's a super great area.
Like a Pittsburgh style, a Seattle style with the overhang, so you can kind of capture some of the crowd noise, but try and make it a part of. Try to make it look like it actually belongs in the city, and it's not just some like when you look at Soldier Field compared to the rest of Chicago. Soldier Field looks really weird because it looks like a giant spaceship that they just threw and
plop next to all the museums and everything down in that part of downtown.
There's Buckingham Fountain, and then there's that weird modern art thing that was just put there. So
well, any new stadium downtown is going to look weird next to crumbling and.
I mean, any stadium anywhere is going to look weird.
Yeah, Nick and I went to Jerry World a couple of years ago, and that thing just raises out of the distance of Arlington like it's surrounded by
but it's Arlington.
Yeah, it's by the ballpark.
Right.
Yeah, the ballpark's right next to it, essentially.
It's the same thing. Like, I went to Kansas City, and, Arrowhead and Kauffman share a parking lot. So, like, at least that's the stadium district. And there's a few others. Philadelphia,
yeah,
right?
Broad Street.
So there's other parts that have that. But I don't know. It's something, it's not going to be satisfying for... a lot of people are going to be left disappointed.
Oh yeah, no, it's going to be. It's going to make like 20% of the people in this area happy, no matter where it is.
Yep.
If it's in downtown and it displaces a whole bunch of people and gentrifies an area and yada yada yada, there's going to be a lot. I have a dark horse for a spot that I think would actually be awesome.
Go ahead.
Summit Park Mall.
Go on.
So it's in
interesting.
It's in Niagara County, which is obviously a minus because it's not in Erie County. But so you have access. It's essentially Niagara Falls.
Yep.
So that's we have all these overarching pictures of the falls and
less than a mile from the airport. I mean,
it's literally down the street from the airport.
But you've got major road access in there. You've got Niagara Falls Boulevard right there.
You have Williams Road. You have the highway that goes from Williams out to it's LaSalle Highway or Parkway or whatever the fuck it's called.
Yep.
You have
which
Niagara
means
Falls
you have
Boulevard.
easy 190 access.
Right, and you have Niagara Falls Boulevard coming from both sides. You have River Road, which is up until you get to that part of Wheatfield, it's 4 lanes both ways. I don't know. I just like, because I drive it every once in a while because I've got a trivia show out that way that I go to, and I take Williams when I go up there, and I look to my right and I see there's Stephen Barry's sign is still there on Summit Park Mall, and it's an enormous
mall,
an absolutely enormous plot of land, and there's tons of land out there, and there's nothing going on with it. Sears is going to close there in 2 months probably, and they're trying to do different things with it. But the plot of land, and obviously it's so far away from Buffalo proper, but we attract so many people from all over Western New York, whether it's Rochester, Southern Ontario, Toronto people come down for, and you're right there. You have the Queenston Lewiston Bridge, which is right there. You've got the Rainbow Bridge is right there. I just don't think.
Well, the Bills have never been able to draw from just Buffalo. Like, to think of them as just Buffalo. Yeah, I mean, there's people that come from Syracuse and come from Erie and come from Rochester.
And they fly in from Florida,
right?
Which is where we get, it would be literally down the street from the airport.
And we finally have a reason for all those pregame shots of Niagara Falls that they show, even though the team is located a good 45 minutes away from there.
But then they can't do wing shots anymore because they're not in Buffalo anymore.
There's a Duff's on Niagara Falls Boulevard and Military. So, yes, we can do it now.
Then we'll allow it. The OG.
You guys have
the
some,
the OG Duffs, the 5th Duffs.
The 5th. Original 5th Duffs.
I can buy that. I can buy the Summit Hill Mall location better than I can the Tonawanda.
I don't think it's a bad. I actually don't think it's a bad idea, because that really would be taking something where literally nothing exists now at this point and turning into something.
That mall. I was there one day because I think it's the closest Sears to me anymore, and I had to look for something for my
one of 3 left in the
tool.
state.
Yep.
And it closed, but that thing is a decaying carcass of a mall.
There's nothing. There's literally nothing. The mall proper doesn't exist. It exists in a shell, but there's nothing. It's funny because you talk about this whole well, we should do this with this land, and because I know people do that on various Buffalo related websites when it comes to the Main Place Mall, but the Main Place Mall actually has a use.
What's up with their management?
Hi, Mike.
It's a whole different podcast.
Sorry.
So a lot of people like to do fantasy, economic development,
fantasy property development, right behind fantasy football. It's the second most played fantasy sport amongst Buffalo.
It really is,
residents,
especially when it comes to Main Place Mall. But Summit Park is like one of those things where it's not like there's nothing going on out there. They don't have like data centers, and it's not like where they're having this plan. They had a plan for a while. They wanted to build like soccer fields and all this other shit out there. Build ice rinks. But it's completely fallen apart because there's no support for it. But I imagine if Kim called whoever owns that plot of land and say, hey.
Sure. Yeah. You're listening, right? You have to.
Do it. You have to. So I don't know. I like it. I've been thinking a while about it. I'll probably get hell for it, but whatever. I don't care.
No, I don't think it's that bad of an idea. I mean,
the team's outside of Buffalo, but they're outside of Buffalo now.
Yeah, it's not a change.
Right.
It's like you were saying, it's an easily accessible area that seems to have the space to put the stadium there, and there's nothing going on there, so why not put the stadium there to liven up the area and maybe help the city of Niagara Falls up a little bit up Niagara Falls Boulevard and Military Road area near the outlets and all that. Why not draw more people to them on game days?
The only thing that I would see like they would be like absolutely like hell to pay is because Erie County has given so much money to the Bills and so many tax breaks and this and that to move literally out of county. I don't know if that's a thing that's...
Yeah, there's political ramifications with doing that, for sure.
But you could write another letter to our buddy Mark and make sure...
Solve everything.
Figure out the Niagara County executive.
Who I know the
Steve,
the mayor. No, the mayor's
Jeff.
Deister.
Paul.
It's Paul, yeah. I don't know who the county executive is out there, but
Justin Erie.
I've got other connections out there because there's only so many people that live in Niagara County.
Like 8,
I think, and they all go to my trivia show in Newfane.
As one does. People love Newfane.
It's a hopping trivia crowd out in Newfane.
It is.
Should we do predictions real quick?
Yeah, let's do predictions before we talk about Sabres for a little
Bills,
bit.
Colts. Go ahead, Mike.
With Peterman starting, I'm
Maybe.
well. I'm going with likely. If McDermott doesn't seem to have any confidence that Anderson's going to have the playbook, I'm thinking Peterman's going to start, and I'm thinking we're headed further down the road towards that number 1 draft pick.
Very good.
I'm picking the Colts. I think the Bills' defense will play well, but I still think it's going to be 24-14 Colts.
Nick.
I think Anderson starts. I have a good feeling. I'm hoping Anderson starts. I don't have a good feeling. Who am I kidding? I want Anderson to start. I wanted Anderson to start. I wanted them to sign Anderson
2007 Pro Bowler Derek Anderson.
I really,
Mr. Anderson.
I really think he's not gonna, rejuvenate the team by any means. But I wouldn't be surprised if he leads the team to a win. If if Allen is out for 3 games, I wouldn't be surprised if Anderson leads the team to a win for 1, maybe 2 of the games. Probably not the second game, but
Talk about that next week.
yes, we can talk about that next week. But I do think the Bills win 17-10.
That sounds about right. Just 10.
I think that the Nathan Peterman and the Bills are going to win.
Yeah, they are.
And Nathan Peterman's going to play. He's going to throw 3 touchdowns.
It's going to be the Peter Man.
And 17 picks. It could be a historic performance by the defense.
That would be.
I think Peterman's going to start, and I think if you want to start in the dome against the Colts defense. I don't know. I think they can pull it out. The Colts are very good. This might be the game where Jerry Hughes finishes out the rest of Andrew Luck's shoulder, and that's that.
Question, Justin. Do you think Peterman lasts all 4 quarters? Has Peterman lasted 4 quarters in a game?
No.
Will he last all 4 quarters?
Or
we're going to score so many points that we're like, screw it. Let's put in Derek Anderson, get him some reps.
I don't want to think that far ahead.
Get this young buck in.
You don't want to think past the 3rd
I don't
quarter.
want to think that hard. I don't know, man. I think he's going to start. I don't think it'll be pretty. I think they'll win, though.
Yeah, I guess the Colts don't have
defense.
Dwight Freeney and that other guy. Dwight Smith? Is that a thing? Steve Entman?
I don't know.
Bob
Sanders.
There you go.
Yeah.
Robert Mathis.
Mike Doss.
Mike Doss.
Iron Man Mike Doss.
I'm thinking of all those 2005 Madden games I played. Remember Mike Doss is a big deal in that game.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
I think this is a game the Bills are going to win and win big for no reason. It's going to make us all really confused next week. We're not going to know what to talk about.
It's the Vikings Redux.
It's the Vikings Redux. Bills 35-14.
There you go. So I think that surprise Colts signing, Vontae Davis, is going to have 2 pick sixes on Nathan Peterman in incredible fashion. And I'm going to say it's going to be Colts 23, Bills 10.
I prefer your reality where that happens because that'd be the most Bills thing ever. A guy who quit our team at halftime signs with the other team and goes off.
How is that legal? Why?
Who's the 3rd man in the Colts secondary?
And we're paying him in dead money.
You're paying him to destroy us.
Because
Go
it's
Bills.
so funny. All right, let's talk about something a little bit more promising. And that is the local men's professional hockey team, the Buffalo Sabres, 3-2. 1-1 since we last joined you last week. Kind of an ugly loss, actually, against Colorado at home, 6-1. Colorado looks pretty good. Not gonna lie.
Kind of ugly is a good description. I mean, they did play well for stretches of the game.
They did, but Colorado just overwhelmed them.
Yeah, and their defense played pitiful.
Well, defense is still going to be an issue, and we knew that coming in. But
best team out of that game, sorry, real quick. Rasmus Dahlin was a world beater that game. He played very well. You're starting to see confidence come out of that kid, and it's.
Well, speaking of the confidence, he tallied his first goal in the next game on Saturday as the Sabres throw a shutout, 3-0 in the desert at the Coyotes.
On Kachina Saturdays, too. No small feat. That was a really encouraging game for a couple of young Sabres that I think we like to believe are part of the future of this team, and both Rasmus Dahlin and also Linus Ullmark, who got his first career shutout in that game, and it wasn't handed to him. He had to earn it. A very
first
good
start
game
of the
by him.
season, so that very promising. Continuing this road trip, by the next time we speak, 4 more games out on the West Coast, all the American Pacific time zone teams. So they got Vegas Tuesday, San Jose Thursday, LA Saturday, and then Anaheim on Sunday. So very condensed schedule. You play 5 games in 2 weeks, then you play 4 in the span of 6 days.
I think 2-2 is a baseline for this trip. I think they've already beaten Vegas, but can you get that same team twice? And it's almost weird that both your Vegas games are happening in the first 2 weeks of the season. We'll not see this team again until the Stanley Cup.
Sayonara. Yes, exactly.
But then you got an LA team that's played okay. You've got an Anaheim team that's a little banged up, but still pretty solid. You have a San Jose team that on paper is a world beater, but has had their struggles.
I mean, Vegas is pretty banged up. You're talking about
Vegas is banged up and struggling.
Stastny's going to be out for a couple months. That was one of their big signings. I think Derek Englund's out or he's at least day to day. So they got some injury issues that they're dealing with. And they, to be fair to Vegas, they spent a whole lot of time on the East Coast so far this season. So I think that they'll be happy to sit back. I think they opened at home and then they went on a 4 or 5 game road trip on the East Coast. So kind of the reverse of what the Sabres got to do. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the actual play. I think the biggest story, from the last couple of games, it is Rasmus Dahlin getting his first goal. I think that's a huge breakthrough for him. I mean, it was kind of gifted to him. He just sort of had to tap the puck into the net.
Skinner's best game, his first 2 points coming in that game on Saturday night, a beautiful pass.
Yeah, I was going to say, you missed out on another young Sabre in Jeff Skinner.
I mean, he's young-ish.
Well, I guess he's young. But he's young. He's young as a Sabre.
He is a young Sabre.
Young as a Sabre, yeah.
4 games old. Or 5 now.
He's a little baby.
Little baby boy. But it is good. Yeah, to me, this is just, it's top to bottom in terms of the forwards. The team is just going to be better. There's no getting around that. The problem, like Justin said, is I just don't know what we're going to get from this defense. And, Dahlin's obviously going to be a cornerstone piece for this team, but some of these other guys have really been struggling, it seems.
This guy knows that a really tough season so far, just in terms of decision making. Seems like he's trying too hard or do too much on his own. He made a really bad play in Arizona, and Allmark bailed him out. Like, he just dove and slid into 2 players and left someone wide open in the back door. Like, what are you thinking there?
I haven't seen a bad goal. I mean, Colorado wasn't good. Don't get me wrong, but it feels like the goaltending has been pretty solid for the Sabres.
Yeah, there's not that off of Leonard's right pad, off of his right pad through his 5-hole on a guy taking a 20-mile-an-hour shot from the point.
Well, you're making individual saves, one-on-one saves, which it seemed like whenever Leonard got matched up with somebody one-on-one, and look, I defended the guy as long as possible, but it seemed like whenever he got stuck in a one-on-one situation, Leonard got beat. It didn't matter whether it was in the shootout, which we know is his bugaboo, or whether it was against, the actual out on the ice. It seemed like he could never make that one save where, his teammates screwed him over, but he bailed him out. That just didn't seem to be the case. With Hutton and with Allmark, so far, very limited sample size, but so far so good. No real complaints. So it's a young season, but there's definitely more promise, and there's definitely, you can see now, okay, this is the direction that the team seems to be moving in. They have a legitimate top 6. They have good goaltending. They have pieces that will grow on the blue line.
Legitimate pieces, too.
Legitimate pieces that can actually perform. Unfortunately, we still are also putting out a lot of crap on the blue line, and that'll be an interesting thing to see as the season moves along, and if they have any sort of depth. And there's even guys still in Rochester that can contribute too. It's not going to be this shuttle service like they had constantly for the last couple of years. I think that there's legitimate talent that could come up at any point. Brandon Gooley is the first one that comes to mind, but there's Nylander's still down there as well, and others. So the organization as a whole feels better right now than it has at any other point, I would say, since the drafting of Jack Eichel. I think that's a fair statement to make.
The difference between how the Bills are trying to build their team and how the Sabres are trying to build their team is the Sabres getting these top draft picks, but also trying to supplement them with guys like Scandella, Skinner, Oposo. Whether or not they're working, realizing they can't just build by having the top pick. You have to also bring another talent. Whereas the Bills are like, well, if we draft Allen and Edmonds, they'll just make everyone around them better. No, you also need talent. And I think this is a much more talented team for the Sabres on paper than it has been in a long time. And the beneficiaries of that are going to be the Reinhardt, Eichel, Ristolainen, guys like that who now don't have to make everything happen by themselves.
And that's true. But you look at, because we did the whole thing with Eichel, yada, yada, yada. But we had, the swings and the misses. You had your Lenners and you had your O'Reillys, and not that O'Reilly's a swing and a miss, but it didn't work out.
But at least it's a swing.
It's a swing. You're right. But I mean, the Bills made swings, and we're still holding on to those players, maybe. Or it's. I think, again, when you look into what we are less than 1/10 of the season in.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And it's
small.
and it's tough to say like, oh well, everything's on the up and up. I'm always going to be one of those guys that's until they are a top 8 team. It's going to be tough for me to sell me on it to like where I want to watch the game.
Sure. And I guess what is concerning is, if the team has a bad period, there's probably no reason to be like screaming at them coming off the ice. Like that will get old. Whether or not I don't necessarily, I'm not one of those guys that says you can do whatever you want. I just think that that's not understanding the game of hockey to just constantly be booing. Look, like if they have a shitty period, they have a shitty period.
Right.
So that seems counterproductive to me.
Well,
but
that's the Buffalo sports mentality.
It is right now. They're abused puppies at this point.
There are other good teams in the league that have the ability to make good teams look like bad teams.
Sure.
And especially for stretches of periods. And the Bruins happen to be a good team. And the Colorado Avalanche happen to be a good team.
Right.
With a lot of very talented players.
So they came out and scored, 3 in the first last week, right? On Thursday?
Yes.
Yeah.
They just got in the slots so easily on a few of those.
Especially since they had 3 power play goals. I mean, it was, and then they were just missing assignments on defense on the penalty kill.
But how great would it be? Because if the playoffs started today,
they'd be the
Sabres, Maple Leafs, first round.
No.
Because they have a really stupid playoff format. It would be the
the
Atlantic champion Maple Leafs against the wild card 2 Sabres. Crowds going crazy.
Is that how that works?
That is actually how that would work. Yes, I know it looks
so
dumb.
Stupid.
I know you're dumb.
Oh yeah. They're 5th in the Atlantic.
Yeah, so they would be the second wild card.
They have it broken down different than last year. They had like a wild card.
They have a winning
Well,
record.
they're not going to put it up until later in the season.
I think in ESPN they have the playoff.
They have a winning record.
But they probably have the playoffs from last year still.
for the first time since last week.
Unbelievable. We had to wait. There are 5-day-old kids that have never known.
Never seen the Sabres with a winning record.
But yeah, I mean, look, the feeling overall, regardless of what's happening in the arena, I will say I do think that the feeling overall on the team has changed. There is optimism. It is justified optimism. Totally comfortable with it. It's okay to be excited about the potential of the Sabres. Are they going to stick in the wild card? Probably not. Right now, ESPN indicates that there will be no wild card.
only 16.
No wild
in
cards.
the Eastern Conference. They're just going top 6. They're going to kind of go like a small time.
They call it the original 6 out here in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, the original
Yes,
6.
Carolina, New Jersey, and Columbus.
Yeah, we have originally Hartford, originally the Colorado Rockies, and originally non-existent.
The beauty of seeing the Leafs, Bruins, and Canadiens on top of the Atlantic, and the Hurricanes, Devils, and Blue Jackets on top of the Metro. Isn't that something?
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, originally the Whale.
Good job, ESPN. I called it too. I said ESPN was going to have a fucked up website.
ESPN
screw everything up
ESPN
with
is the
it
only
without
multi-million-dollar corporation that
does not give a fuck about
that
that.
actively seeks out ways to get worse.
But honest to God, they actually, I mean, I'm not here to defend ESPN. They have a show, they have a game at night, and they have a highlight show again. And they're actually like picking games. NBC's not showing John Tavares going back to the island. ESPN Plus is having that game.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of a big deal that John Tavares, Mr. Islander, who actually was secretly sleeping in his Maple Leaf pajamas every night, is going back to, the place where he was the captain for basically a decade. So, like, they are picking up on that, but then, of course, their website craps the bed, and we can't even tell. But I do believe that Buffalo would be considered the second wild.
That sounds right.
The Devils are 3-0. undefeated. Only undefeated
Why
team
have
in
they
the league
played
right now.
3 games?
Why
Didn't they play
and
the
the
first
lead-
game in Edmonton? Like the game in Sweden? Was that them that played
Maybe
Edmonton?
that's what it is. But the Devils have played 3 games. The Lightning
And they just
have
played last
3
night,
games.
too, so it wasn't like 3 games of a long break.
Right, it's the same thing that the NHL had. 9 games last Thursday and,
And
0 on
Friday.
Friday.
So
Yeah.
dumb.
Are
And then
you serious?
the Leafs have played 7. So I mean, everything's. Of course, the Leafs have the most points in the East right now.
It
Nobody
would be
has played
impossible for
7
the Sabres
games.
to have that many points with a perfect record, so... Classic Toronto-based league office making the Leafs look good.
Pension
Detroit with a
puppets.
minus 16 goal.
I was just looking at
They
the-
are
the-
fucking terrible.
Devils are
Absolutely
Pirates are real
fucking
bad.
terrible.
Yeah.
Detroit is.
There could
My
be some
goodness
major
gracious.
issues, but overall, Sabres are looking better. Like we said, 2-2. I think 4 more points on this West Coast swing. I'd be happy with that.
Scroll back down. Have they given up 30 goals in 6 games?
Yeah.
Ouch.
They're missing 3 of their top 6 D on IR right now, and they were bad to begin with.
Yeah, but still,
Bring back Lidstrom. I mean, he's got to be good. Right
he's
now, right?
probably.
I bet you
better-
Chelios could still defend better than some of those kids
Yeah.
they've called up from Grand Rapids.
I'm sure they can.
Oh man,
Play the Sharks in a couple days. There's a
big game.
There's some good defense in
analytics,
there.
a graph that came out earlier today that showed teams 5-on-5 hockey, and the Sabres were like bottom 2 5-on-5, and then the Sharks were literally off the chart up top 5-on-5 hockey. That should be a fun game to watch.
I mean, just the level of talent on that team. I know they haven't been meshing with a lot of the new players quite yet. Still very early in the season, but just picture like a top unit that's got Burns and Carlson, Kane, Couture, Pavelski, Thornton, all these guys out there in some sort of rotation. That's just a
Kane's
taxing
playing-
game for a defense.
Kane's like the anchor of their third line because they have so much depth
Yeah.
that they.
Well, you got Meyer and
afford to
LeBanc and Hurdle and all those guys, and they don't have to stack up a line.
It'll be very interesting to see Vander Kane against his old team. I think that'll be certainly intriguing. I don't
first
know if
game, right?
Anybody
First
will-
game back?
First
game back.
First game against Kane.
Right.
You're curious if anybody wants to take a swing. There's so many new guys on the Sabres too that it's not like it's the same roster that he
Is
was
there a
facing.
reason to take a swing, though?
No, I
don't think so.
I don't,
I mean,
but
I-
I just it.
Someone's
you never
gonna
know
run
if
to the
that's
locker room after
something.
the game and throw his tracksuit into the shower.
And
in San
honestly,
Jose, and
do we have anybody that could take a swing?
Not at this point.
is Nick Delorier rostered currently?
No.
I wonder what he's doing Thursday.
Matt Molson is probably hanging out
Matt
somewhere.
Molson's literally in California right now.
Just chilling with the rain? Bring him up. Bring him up. Bring him up.
Ontario rain.
But
Rain in California.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I hate to do this, guys, but I got to get going. I know that we're
All right,
running
well-
a little bit behind, but I gotta get home. It's 10:30. It's a work night, so I know you guys are gonna wrap up here, and I think you got something going on, and that's cool. But I'm gonna get going. It's been great to see you guys. I love each and every one of you deeply in my heart.
Bill,
Yep.
God bless.
Thank you. So I hate to do this, guys, but I gotta jump out of here. So good luck. You guys can do all the the Twitter and Facebook and all
Yeah,
that
we'll
stuff.
blast all the social
right,
medias
great.
for you.
All right, guys.
Thanks,
Take care.
Bill.
Yep.
So we do have one last segment before we call it a night here. It's a new segment sponsored by the Healthy Scratch at Harbor Center. It's the Sabres Healthy Scratch interview, where we have been given the privilege of interviewing the Sabres Healthy Scratch, who is, doing nothing but sitting up in the press box and answering our questions. So Justin is going to be dialing up his second favorite Sabre, Johan Larsson.
I do have a question. So
Yes.
once we get Mr. Larson on the phone, I do have a question. So we can start. Can we start off with my question?
Yeah, we can
Okay,
start with
great.
your question.
Let's do that. I'm looking forward to it, honestly, because it's something that I've been thinking about a lot. In my holy
biggest-
shit, that's
biggest
loud.
interview we've ever had.
Jesus Christ. Is it?
Hello?
Hello, Johan.
Yeah, this is Johan Larsson. How you doing?
Good, Mr. Larson. This is the 716 Sports Podcast. We had a few questions for you.
Oh, is this the Healthy Scratch interview?
The Healthy Scratch interview.
It is. Yes.
All right, yeah.
Jesse told you
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
Or was it Kelly?
It was the dog. Sydney?
Yes, Sydney.
Yeah.
Piccolo.
Just bark 10 times to tell you 10 o'clock interview. I know how that can go
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty good at that. Just real quick, I gotta say, the quinoa and kale salad with quinoa is, it's good. What do you want me to say? It's, people love ancient grains. and they love the word, like the idea of a power lunch. So if you're over by the Healthy Scratch, the Healthy Scratch says pick it up.
Mr. Larson, I actually, speaking of food, I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How is the food up in the press box? We heard from Mike Harrington. There was something about pretzels and cheese that was really good. I just want your feedback on the food up in the press box.
Well, before I talk about the food, can I let you in on a little secret about Harrington?
Oh,
absolutely.
Oh, hold on. This is breaking news. I hope.
Yeah. He doesn't need that much nacho cheese. You know what I'm saying? He can probably go with the unsalted pretzel. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. All right. Anyway, the food. Do you like Diet Coke?
Does anyone really like Diet Coke?
Well, here's the thing. They have and this is another exclusive. It's called Diet Coke mustard. Okay, and they have these hamburger patties. They're like Bubba burgers. You ever had a Bubba burger before? You just throw it, it's right in the freezer there. And they set these out in these giant chafing ditches, and then they put the Diet Coke mustard out. But here's the thing. It's actually just Diet Coke. There's no like mustard seed or anything like that in there. So putting Diet Coke on a cold, rock hard hamburger patty, it's absolutely disgusting, and I hate it. I hate being the Healthy Scratch. I really wish that Phil, I don't want to take this in a weird direction, but can I just real quick talk to Phil? I think he's a big fan of you guys, right?
Phil Housley?
Coach?
No. Yeah, go ahead.
I've been working really hard in practice, and I know that I'm not like good, but I really would appreciate it if you would let me play, because I only have one more suit for this trip, and I got a little bit of the Diet Coke mustard on it against the Avalanche game, and it won't come out, and I don't know any dry cleaners in Las Vegas, and it's just, I'm very frustrated. I'm a little fragile right now. All right, I'm sorry. You guys can. Is this live?
No. We record and edit everything. We'll take that out for you.
All right, great. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Hold on.
Johan, maybe next time don't bring your
and we're back.
Don't bring your khaki suit to Vegas next time.
Well, as a European, I look good in khaki. What do you want me to say?
Ladies and gentlemen, Johan Larson will hope to see you on the ice at some point here in the upcoming 4-game Western Road Swing.
Jeff?
Yes, Nick.
Will we really hope to see him on the ice?
If he keeps getting scratched, we have to get the same interview.
Don't you bullshitter. Very good. Steve, and Steve, thank you very much. I appreciate it. You guys all have a great night, and happy anniversary.
Johan Larson, everyone, the Sabres Healthy Scratch interview. That's totally him. Don't look into it. You can find us on Facebook at 716 Sports Podcast, on Twitter at 716 Sport Podcast. You can follow us on Mixlr. You can like us on Instagram. You can follow our Spotify and our SoundCloud, where Justin is uploading all of his raps and podcasts together, kind of combined in one melding artistic vision. You can drink our beer, the 716 Sports Podcast Lager, available now at consumers. You can follow us. What else? What haven't done yet? You can snap us on Snapchat. You can actually literally follow us on Twitch. We do actually have one of those. It's Justin's for now, but we're gonna probably do something fun with that at some point.
Hey guys, it's Johan Larson saying follow him on Facebook, on Twitter, and I'm gonna make a really funny noise for a minute. All right, go ahead. Just keep doing your plug.
That's about all I got. You guys got anything? I think you want to add on to the end of the show here? Anything at all, Justin? You got your favorite Sabre, Johan Larson, on the back of the phone here.
Good luck on the road trip.
That's all I got. Have a good night, everyone.
I'm going to go get myself some cereal.